Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today is day 355 in my Cayman. Mileage right now is 66,520. I've been filming and uploading to YouTube my on-track exploits for over 15 years now. Over the last couple of weeks I've had a look back at some old videos covering my first 10 years or so on track. I was curious to see how video quality has changed and improved over the years from when I started out recording onto mini DV tapes. If you want to see those videos, there's a playlist, I'll stick a link up there, looking back at my first 11 years, 2005 to 2015, with one video from each year. On track, I started recording with an actual potato, but I've now moved on to 5 permanently powered 5-hour capacity GoPros. And through trial and sometimes quite painful error, over that time, I've learned a lot. So today I'm going to share with you how I have everything set up for recording on track. What cameras I use, the SD cards, the settings, how they're mounted, how they're tethered, and how they're powered. And hopefully for some of you, you'll find this useful. It'll help you avoid some of the mistakes that I've made along that journey. There's a few general filming things I've learned, along with some GoPro settings that it's worth knowing before I get into the specifics of my setup. And the first is my take on video resolution. Now I did an experiment this year, quite recently, across 2 track days, one at Bedford in August and one at Goodwood in September. At Bedford I filmed entirely in 4K, or the highest resolution that the cameras would do, and at Goodwood I filmed in 1080 with all other settings the same. Now the final videos were rendered and uploaded in 4K, but the source video for Goodwood was actually only 1080. Those 2 track days back to back, one in 4K, one in 1080. I uploaded all of the footage from both days, and I did not get one single comment on the quality of the video at Goodwood filmed in 1080. Now the second thing to talk about is frame rate, or FPS. Now this is personal preference really, but higher, 50 or 60 frames per second is smoother, and a lower frame rate, while less smooth, can give a greater sense of speed. I film in 25 frames per second across all of my cameras for 2 reasons. The first one being that greater sense of speed and movement. And the second reason, and you'll thank me for this, is it saves you a massive amount in your editing workload. Save yourself and your PC the time and the bother. 4K 60 versus 1080 25 is 9.6 times as many pixels to process, almost 10 times as much workload. And also by using a lower frame rate, you get much more on the memory card, so storage is less of an issue. And the third point is about the memory cards. Now I've got all GoPros, and if you do have a GoPro, you need to run the memory cards that GoPro specifically recommend. If you search recommended GoPro cards, you'll find a link to a page on the GoPro website where they detail exactly what you should have in what cameras. And ignore that suggestion at your peril. I've run non-recommended memory cards before, and the cameras can overheat, lock up, just stop randomly midway through recording. You really don't want that. You want peace of mind, so stick with the standard recommended GoPro memory cards. The fourth thing specific to GoPros is the Protune setting. Now if that's something you can turn on or off, make sure you turn it on. It'll give you a higher bitrate video, which gives you more detail, more clarity. Number 5 is another recommendation specific to GoPros, and that is to make sure you have QuikCapture turned on. With QuikCapture, the camera is always off, but press the shutter button, it powers on, starts recording, and then when you've finished, press it again, it stops and it shuts down. And talking of batteries running out, my 6th point is about powering the cameras. Now I've never ever had a camera shut down on me because of low battery mid-session on track. All of my cameras, all of them, I run powered by USB leads that I've got threaded throughout the cabin from an adapter fitted behind the passenger seat. So don't waste your money on expensive GoPro batteries or unreliable, poor quality Chinese copies. Buy yourself a little 12 volt power adapter with USB sockets in and a long USB lead. With permanent power and 5-hour capacity memory cards, I can start them before the first session in the morning and turn them off when we stop for lunch. No worries about stopping and starting and making sure you've got all of them going and that they're all synchronized. Just one action, leave it running the whole time. And last is a quick note on audio. Now you can use the audio captured by the later GoPros, and I'm talking sort of 7 and up. It's not the best though, so instead of that, I place a Zoom H1 in my door bin, and I connect to that a couple of lav mics through a stereo splitter. So one feeds the left channel, one feeds the right. It does give you a bit more editing workload, but I find it's worth it for the quality and the options it gives you when editing. Now I'll move on to my cameras and my setup, and I've got 5 GoPros, starting with the Hero 8. I've got a Hero 4 Black, I've got a Hero 7 Black, a Hero 4 Session and a Hero 5 Session, and I position them around the cabin based on their capability and the importance of the shot. So in that order, I start with my 4 Session, which is mounted here and records the dials. It's mounted on the steering column using a sticky GoPro mount, as all of my cameras are. Once you get them positioned in the right place, they're fixed. You can take the cameras out, they don't get in the way, and it's quick to attach them. I've been using sticky mounts for 4 years, inside and out. So long as you take care when removing them, I've never had a problem. They don't leave any residue that can't be shifted with a little bit of effort. And all my cameras are also secured, tethered, by plastic coated steel cables. Now you can buy these very cheaply from Amazon for just a few pounds. You put the thumb screw through one end and the other, you loop round an anchor point and then through itself. And on this one, I've got it wrapped around the steering column. The camera that I run here for the dials is an old one, released in 2015. The 4 Session doesn't have anything more than 1080, and with Protune on, you only have one field of view, and that's wide. In the 4 Session, I run the aforementioned approved GoPro 64GB memory card. I'm recording 1080-25. That gives me 5 hours 37 minutes of recording capacity. Next up is my other Session camera, the Session 5, which I have down there recording the pedals. It's quite simple to mount once you get the angle right, and it's also tethered around the steering column. I have stabilisation turned off, I have Protune on. There's a few field of view options. I don't really have a preference, I tend to chop and change a bit. And again, recording at 1080-25, that gives me 5 hours 38 of recording time on a 128GB memory card. Mounted in the corner of the windscreen, I have my Hero 4 Black filming the cabin, and using a frame mount for this one, it's tethered around the sun visor. I run this one with a basic, very light UV filter on it, primarily as a lens protector. There's no stabilisation on the 4 Black, but running it with Protune on, with a 128GB memory card, and recording in 1080-25, I get 5 hours 39. Looking at the back, I have a Hero 7 Black. Now this is tethered to one of the luggage net securing rings, and on this one, as with the 8 that I've got mounted at the front, it's about capturing the cars that I'm following or being followed by. That means for those 2 cameras, I always run the narrow or the linear field of view. If you run wide, it just makes them look too far away, even though they're actually quite close to you. I also run the 7 Black with stabilisation turned on, even though it's fairly rigidly mounted. It keeps the target nice and central, takes any vibrations out, and makes the footage look nice and smooth. Note that this one also has a filter fitted. Now this is a CPL or polarizing filter. As with the 8 at the front, this is necessary to stop screen reflections. Polaroid filters really limit the glare you get from the dashboard in the sunlight. They're absolutely vital if you're going to have a camera mounted to the glass looking through the glass. And as with the others, recording at 1080-25 and with Protune on this one from 128GB, I get 5 hours and 17 of recording time. And lastly, I have my Hero 8, which is mounted just behind there, looking forward through the windscreen. It's tethered around the rearview mirror, and as with the 7 Black, it's got a CPL filter on it. Stabilisation is on, but only the basic setting, because any higher and it crops in and wanders around too much. But running the 8 at 1080-25 and with a high bitrate setting turned on, with 128GB, I get 5 hours and 18 minutes. So that's my cameras and how they're all set up. I'll close with a few notes on mounts and accessories. Suction mounts. Now I've gone through a ton of these over the last 16 years, and they've ended up in the bin or broken. all except 3, and the 3 that I've got and I still use are GoPro ones, official GoPro ones. It's really not worth trying the cheap ones. You get chronic shake. They're just not very good quality. And accessories, and by that I mean the sticky mounts, the thumb screws, the extension arms. Again, as with the suction mounts, stick with the genuine GoPro ones. I've tried plenty of the cheap ones and they're clearly made of a much lower quality polymer, and they can be quite brittle and can break. Also, they generally don't grip as well. No matter how tight you do the thumb screw up, sometimes they will just move and relocate with a bit of a knock. That doesn't happen with the genuine GoPro ones. They pinch up really, really tight. What about file sizes and data? What do you have to manage if you run a setup on track like mine? Well, when I recorded at Bedford, as I said, I did it in 4K, the highest resolution available. 5 cameras, 2 hours and 45 minutes recorded on track, 1 audio recorder, and that came to 318 gigabytes. And stepping the higher resolutions down to 1080 when I recorded at Goodwood, I recorded for 3.5 hours, and that was 308 gigabytes. So that's a lot of data, a heavy editing workload, and you need lots of storage. And my last point, if you're going to buy a GoPro, don't buy the current generation, buy the previous one. They do become better action cameras with each evolution, with each new model, but none of that matters if you're just buying it to film on track. The 10 and the 9, as of today, are £330 each. The Hero 8 is £260. So pay that, save yourself £70 and get some genuine GoPro accessories as well. I hope you found this useful, informative, interesting. Please give this one the mandatory thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that notification bell. And thank you very, very much for watching.